HR, the employer and the employee can upload and download documents with just a few clicks. Simple HR solutions for the everyday company. Start your 90-day free trial now. Hi everyone, welcome back to yet another banging episode. It is your sizzling host, Babi Mawela, and we love to see you here. Thank you for your engagement. Thank you for your likes, comments, and shares. You know the house rules. Please comment, like, share, subscribe, and please follow us on our various social media pages. Thank you to our loyal viewers. And if you're new here, we have got some banging episodes that are being posted weekly. So please stay tuned. You're going to love it here. In studio today, we've got our very beautiful guest. She goes by the name Dolly Nqonji. I don't like to do introductions on your behalf. Please, it's your time to shine. Who is Dolly? Where is she from? What does she do and where is she now?
I've got the limelight.
Yes.
By the way, thanks for pronouncing my surname perfectly, okay?
Thank you.
I heard and I felt the click. A lot of people get it wrong. I was in
you.
Mexico and someone said it's gnocchi.
Oh, okay.
So thanks for that. Yes, thanks, Fabi. So by way of introduction, my name is Dolly and born and bred from Cape Town. And now officially a Johannesburg citizen.
Yay.
Yeah. I've got 3 boys.
Okay.
So mom to 3 boys.
Nice.
I think that's on a personal front. Professionally, I am an HR generalist.
Okay.
So I've worked for a number of multinational organizations.
Okay.
Mostly in the fast-moving consumer goods, prominent organizations like Unilever, British American Tobacco, Consol Glass, Vodacom in telecoms, and now I work for a retailer called Massmart, which is a subsidiary of Walmart.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Stay tuned. I told you every episode you're going to learn. We're going to, unpack topics that we feel that are not spoken enough about.
Yes.
So we are here to discuss diversity, equity, and inclusion today, which I believe you're an expert in. Tell us, where did that journey start in that division particularly?
Yeah, so interesting. Hey, so of course I did mention that I'm an HR generalist by profession.
Yes.
But there was an opportunity for me to kind of segue into the diversity, equity, and inclusion space. So at the time, I was predominantly looking after the equity piece, which is really transformation, driving diversity within the numbers and making sure that we've got well-represented population groups and fundamentally that are representative of our customer base.
Okay.
And I had an opportunity to kind of make a lateral move. And I was really worried because I was like, most of us think that growth is linear, right? And for me, it was lateral. And then I thought, you know what, let me just go in and take the plunge and go and get new skill sets. And I went into the D&I space, and it was a specialist role at the time.
Okay.
But I think what was wonderful for me as an opportunity is that this was a new function altogether for the Massmart organization. So I literally had carte blanche to put together a new function and resource it and kind of provide strategic direction in terms of diversity, equity, and inclusion for the organization. And then a couple of months later, I was then promoted into an executive role in that space. I suppose attesting to the great work that I'd done as a specialist. And as the organization then evolved, I was further promoted to look after the culture piece, but merging it with diversity, equity, and inclusion as a vice president. So that's how I got into the diversity, equity, and inclusion space.
Nice.
Yeah.
You're very accomplished, and we love that for you.
Thank you.
And personally, what does D&I mean to you now that you have grown into this role? What does it mean to you now?
Yeah, it's a very good question, Pabi. Thank you, because I just think that D&I is very complex.
Yeah.
And a lot of people think or limit diversity, equity, and inclusion to just race and gender.
Correct.
So I think personally for me, being in this space as well allows me the opportunity to kind of educate and sensitize people that it goes beyond that.
Correct.
But I think personally for me, D&I means I'm seen, my perspectives are valued, my ideologies actually matter, my beliefs are also seen.
Okay.
I'm seen, right?
Yes.
and on the equity front, that race is no longer a determining factor for my life outcomes. And then when we look at inclusion, I'm invited to spaces where I don't feel like I'm worthy, I'm included.
Yes.
And I'm in a space of, belonging, where there's a psychologically safe space that allows for me to be, irrespective of the different intersectionalities that I come in. I'm a Black female.
Yes.
With many other intersectionalities, right?
Yes.
And so that's what it means for me personally, I think. But also personally, it really just allows me to get into people's hearts and make them understand that diversity is really not just about race and gender.
100%.
There are cognitive aspects to it pertaining to the way that we think. There are primary aspects pertaining to our biological element and where we come from, our social backgrounds. It's quite a complex topic. And so for me personally, I get excited that I get to take people along the journey, that it's actually just not a black and white or race and gender thing.
Yes.
So that's what it means to me personally. And I'm quite passionate about it because it allows me the space to transform people's minds and how they view the space.
Yes. Yeah. You're transforming my mind, because honestly, I had that view, race, gender, you know, and I love how you answered the question. So what are the challenges you'd say you encountered in trying to start this new role and make people understand what it really means?
Sure. First of all, I think it was about people thinking that diversity, equity, and inclusion is just about numbers.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys saw Elon Musk's post not so long ago saying D&I must die.
Oh, yes.
And he made reference to the fact that it perpetuates discrimination. And I thought it was so short-sighted, because D&I is not just about the E in D&I, the equity piece.
Yes.
It's really just about tapping into people's different perspectives and allowing people to be who they are in terms of diversity, right? And so that challenge for me, where we have to kind of transfigure people's minds from thinking that D&I is just about equity, that it's just about that race, but it's actually much broader than that.
Yes.
That it allows people spaces of inclusion where they feel like they're part of, rather than, excluded from certain things.
Yes.
And of course, I think secondly, whilst that belief is there, I think it's important that you kind of get leadership buy-in. If leaders don't buy into why diversity, equity, and inclusion exists, that poses a limitation as soon as you try and cascade initiatives. And so they need to understand what the business case is for it before anything else, because other people won't actually buy into it.
Yeah.
And I think probably thirdly and most importantly for me, the work around diversity, equity, and inclusion is very sensitive.
Yeah.
That it's one thing for us to teach people about the concepts.
Yes.
But if we fail to change people's hearts and minds around it, they're not going to be able to live it.
Yes.
It's just going to sit in the head. But I think our jobs are, yes, we teach them conceptually from a head level what these things mean. But the challenge is, how do we get them to relate to these things from a heart point of view? Because once we get into the heart, people then tend to it's easy to make change because they believe in it from an emotive standpoint and not just from the head.
I love how you answered that, because it then gives birth to this question, right? Are strategies that are being implemented in terms of D&I, are they effective in workplaces, or do you feel that there's more work that needs to be put in when it comes to D&I?
Another good question. I think organizations vary. There are those that are doing it well.
Yes.
And there are those that are not. I tend to be asked to consult quite a lot in this space, to be honest. And what I find is that people are trying to drive D&I initiatives because there's a hype around it.
Yeah.
It's become so relevant, right?
Yes.
And for me, that's a problem, because D&I has got to be able to support the business strategy first and foremost. You're not just going to have D&I in isolation of what the business is driving. So what is the actual business case? I mean, if I look at us at Massmart, we're a retailer.
Yes.
And our customer base is incredibly diverse.
Yes.
So it makes sense for us to
100%.
kind of imbue and embed diversity in our organization, because if we're reflective of our customer base, they come back and they also refer more customers to come in because they see themselves within our organization.
Yes.
So I think that data point is very important.
Yeah.
Leading me to the second bit that says people just want to tailor initiatives without understanding the data behind it.
Yes.
First of all, do you have diversity problems? What does data tell you? I think for me, that's the first point, because you can't drive initiatives in the absence of the existing and what data tells you.
Okay, got
so
you.
there are a myriad of data sets that you need to be looking at that will inform the kind of initiatives that you're driving. It's not a blanket approach. What works for Massmart in terms of the initiatives that we're driving is bedded down based on what our employees are telling us, what our landscape looks at as an organization. So it's not a copy and paste. It's really understanding where the organization is going. It's really understanding what are the internal dynamics of your employees internally. What do the demographic landscape look like? Do your people feel like they're included?
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? In certain spaces, do they feel like they're safe to be able to speak their minds and their voices and all of that? Also, do people still look at equity and equality the same?
Yeah.
Because then once you start driving transformation and there are certain people that feel like, but why are we still doing this after so many years? Then there's a problem.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
And
yes.
so
Let's touch on that.
yeah, so, you know, so I just feel like, honestly, it starts from the top, understanding what the business is trying to achieve,
Yes.
but also doing a hygiene internally of understanding what are the challenges and why do we need to drive this, informing the kind of initiatives that need to be deployed. Yeah.
Okay, I love, you mentioned something about equity versus equality.
Yes.
Let's dig deeper into that because, you know, I feel that it is, both are very misunderstood and especially when people try to merge them. So I want to understand, let's give people a definition of equity and equality so that they understand.
Yeah. I mean, I want you to look at equality in a way in a way where everybody's got opportunities to thrive, right? We are creating opportunities within the organization for people to thrive.
Yes.
But then there's the other piece that says that there are people that started be way behind, right? And that need to be prioritized. So we may be giving you, let me use an example and say there are opportunities for people to be able to apply for jobs in an organization.
Yes.
That's great. Everybody's got access to all of those resources. But then there's a second leg that says you need to identify that there are people that may not have the prerequisites because they started late than other people. So we've got to be able to equip those people so that they are on the same wavelength, right? In order for us to make sure that there is equality all around, right? So it's not like enough. And I think this is where we get it wrong as organizations. We say we're doing this, so there's access for everyone. But what if Dolly does not... She started off late and doesn't have the prerequisites. I may not have matric. And it's for you as an organization to create platforms for me to get matric so that I can get access to the positions that are available. And I think those are the conversations we need to be having because I hear people saying, get over it. I'm going to use apartheid. Get over it. It happened. So why are we still stuck there? We're stuck there because there's systemic issues where people may have the resources, but there are people that are still far off and backward that we need to address those past injustices before they can tap into the resources that you're making available, essentially. And I think that's where the two distinctions come in.
I love that. I love that. And how are employees receiving that change, you know, that organizations are trying to implement when it comes to D&I? Because, I just want to get the general feel of the public. How is it received?
So first of all, like I said, when you're tailoring your D&I initiatives to what people are saying, data points are critical. I mean, if I look at most organizations, I'm hoping do annual surveys. That's where your employees get an opportunity to tell you, are we operating in psychologically safe spaces? Do we face, for instance, issues of racism? Is there lack of data? They tell you that, right? And so I think that's opportune for you to take that and kind of say, what initiatives am I then going to drive? That's one thing, Pabi, for me. But again, it's in the heart. It's one thing to tell, employees that this is what we're doing. Come and attend this training about diversity, in the time of your life. But if you don't personalize that for them, and maybe I want to expand on this and talk about, again, the different intersectionalities that people come with. I may be a Black female. I may have a disability. You know what I mean? I may not have education. All of those things have a ripple effect in terms of whether I've got privilege or I'm discriminated against. Do you know what I mean? Those are compounding issues for me. And if we don't get into those things and kind of understand what affects associates from the heart and the backgrounds that they come in, they're not going to get what you're trying to land. So it's not simply, guys, we want to teach you about diversity, but we want to understand how it impacts you on your day to day in the organization to see what we can actually do. So once again, bringing it back to bring it in the heart.
In the heart.
I want to give you another example before we move on. I mean, I use this example all the time. I was doing facilitating one diversity, equity and inclusion intervention. And I made an example and I said, how many people know what NY stands for in Gugulethu? So if you're in Cape Town, Gugulethu, there are sectional titles. And the way that they are deemed is you've got NY1, NY2, NY3. And I kind of randomly asked and I said, how many people know what NY stands for? And there was tone deafness. People didn't know.
Yeah.
And the minute I said to them, it actually stands for native yards, everyone was shocked. Can you understand how people live in that kind of space, but they don't know that this thing is systemic and it comes from segregation?
Got you.
Immediately I said that to them, it hit the heart. It then hit home.
Yeah.
So it's the kind of examples that are so relatable to people that people understand and that affect them on a day-to-day basis, that allows them to remember the concepts that you're teaching them around D&I, rather than just leaving them with the concepts, because it doesn't change them.
Yes.
It really, really doesn't change who they are. And so it's really just peeking into people's hearts and understanding what they're going through, and then respond to initiatives based on their day-to-day experiences.
Yes. You know what? I wish you were here in studio just to feel the passion that I'm feeling. You know, I think you are where you are because of the passion. I think passion was your biggest driver. And to the next Black female leader, what is your advice to them? Because I feel that unfortunately there are limitations. But what do you want to say to the next leader? Let's not maybe even narrow it down to race.
Yes. Just leaders in general.
Leader,
You must master your craft. Have credibility in the now and what you're doing now, because nobody will endorse you if you don't have credibility in what you're doing. You need to excel, irrespective of the kind of environment you find yourself in. Be 100%. Confident and master your credibility, because that's where you're going to get respect. 2, you must be able to build targeted relationships with people that are going to influence where your career is going.
Yes.
Okay.
Love that.
You've got to be able to. Unfortunately, there are people that will help you transcend to another level in terms of where you're wanting to go. So you need to be able to identify which ones those are, and you must be able to nurture them. And I think personally for me, that's worked well for me, because most of my sponsors and my mentors have come from that. But again, they've seen that I can deliver. They've seen my credibility and they were like, I want to be associated with that.
Yes, definitely.
Because what that does, Papi, is that when you create focused relationships, people are able to speak about you in boardrooms, even in your absence. Okay. So that's why it's important for you to kind of master and create those relationships. I know that most, not race dependent, to your point, most people suffer from the imposter syndrome.
Yes, definitely.
And I want to demystify that the imposter syndrome is a negative thing. It's actually normal. I believe that if you didn't have the imposter syndrome, you're very comfortable with the next, and you shouldn't. Because you need to be so jittery and kind of worried, but in a good way, and anxious in a good way, that you ask yourself the question, okay, how am I going to shift the dial where I am? It's a good thing. It's really not a bad thing, up until it gets chronic, though, that you can't perform, right? And so identify it when you do have that imposter syndrome, but also say, how do you use that to turn it around to kind of to perform, because you're worthy to be in that space. And then, of course, another big one for me, which was a development area but has worked fundamentally, solicit people's feedback. Most people don't want to go and ask for feedback because they're so scared. But as you solicit feedback from people, obviously know who it is that's credible giving you this feedback. Feedback is the greatest tool to be able to grow, because it really just answers to some of the elements about you that are very uncomfortable, that you may not want to deal with. But as soon as you deal with them, you'll find yourself soaring to another level. Ask people for feedback, and that will help you.
I love it. I love it. I wish I could talk to you all day. Because, wow, you're such a powerhouse. And you didn't come here for nothing. We'd like to show you a token of our appreciation, to say thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much. Those look nice, and they're my favorite color.
Oh, lovely.
Thank you so much, baby. Oh, thank you. Thank you. This is so kind. This is my Valentine's Day gift.
Yes. Happy Valentine.
Thank you.
Thank you. We hope we're going to have you again soon. But thank you so much for joining us. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Dolly Nqonji. Where do people, get to learn about what you do? Where is there a platform that they can follow?
I'm working on that, but I'm quite big on LinkedIn.
On LinkedIn, yes.
So you can find me on LinkedIn, but I am working on a uniformal portal where I will have conversations around diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Okay, love it. You've heard it for yourself. Ladies and gents, I'm not going to remind you. Every Friday, I'm the one that's telling you to stay tuned. Watch the next episode, please. You know the rules now. Enjoy. And I hope you learned something today. We hope to equip you with more education. And please like, follow, share, subscribe. It's your sizzling host, Babi Mawela.
Thank you, Babi.